Welcome to the Mindset Gym podcast, where we exercise your way of thinking to help unlock your hidden potential. I'm your host, Emily Irwin, a registered nurse and holistic nutritionist with a passion for all things health, fitness, and personal development. All right, let's get into it. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning back in. I hope you're having an amazing day today. So we are talking about a topic today that I think a lot of us struggle with. The topic is confidence. This word can feel really elusive and unattainable. You hear a lot of people talking about confidence. You want more of it. You don't feel like you have enough of it. You wish you were born with it. Like, I get it. It is really confusing to know how to navigate confidence, where to get it from. So we're going to be diving into that today. Some ways to think about confidence and some steps to take to help you work on improving this in your everyday life so that you can have an easier time going after the things that you want. So the problem is, many of us actually get it wrong when it comes to confidence. We assume that it's something that you either have or you don't. You're either born confident or you're not, and there's nothing that you can do about it. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Confidence is not something that you have. It's something that you build. Instead of thinking of confidence as this static attribute, think of it as something that you can build and develop over time. A definition of confidence that I really love is the one that Mel Robbins used. She described confidence as the willingness to try. And this definition really gives us the ability to kind of shift our thinking around what confidence is, because that definition is not something static. It's not in the same box as, your eye color or your height or these things that you are born with and you just can't change. It's something that is actionable. It's something that you can go and improve, similar to having a muscular physique or having really healthy looking hair. Like, these are all things that even if you are not born with them, you can work towards them. It is something that you can develop over time. Feeling confident in any skill is going to require you to step into that skill before you feel comfortable doing so. I'm going to use an example from my own life to describe this. So I'm a registered nurse. I've been working full-time as a nurse for about 6 years now. And when I think about how I feel at work, how I think about my work now, I feel pretty confident. I feel like I know what I'm doing. Thinking about going to work doesn't bring me this overwhelming sense of anxiety and imposter syndrome now. But did I come fresh out of nursing school feeling that way? No, absolutely not. I remember I used to be so anxious about providing direct patient care. My first interaction with an actual human being was during my first clinical placement in long-term care, and I remember the day like it was yesterday. I didn't sleep a wink the night before. I got so worked up with anxiety the morning of that I ended up throwing up before we even left. And I spent the entire day just second-guessing everything that I was doing, overthinking everything that I was doing, and I didn't feel like I had a shred of confidence. Even going into my first job as a new graduate, I didn't feel confident. This was all very new territory for me. I was out on my own for the very first time, and it was terrifying. I just remember this overwhelming sense of fear and anxiety that I was going to make a mistake and do something wrong and that I didn't know enough about what I was doing. But over time, something changed. The more that I leaned into that discomfort and leaned into the anxiety and went and did it anyways and just did the best I could for my patients and showed up for them in the ways that I knew how, I started to see myself being more confident in these areas, and I started to grow confidence in what I was doing. And so was there, this magical turning point day where I just suddenly woke up one morning and I felt totally confident in what I was doing? No. There isn't just this light bulb switch that happens overnight. It was a gradual build-up over time. And all of those small steps that I took to show up anyways, they all kind of added up and compounded and create this sense of confidence that you're able to gradually lean into down the road. So we often hear variations of this kind of phrase, start before you're ready. That's not just a nice to say. This is really a necessity if you want to build confidence in any area. The nature of confidence requires us to start before the confidence is there. In order to begin stacking those building blocks that will lead to improved confidence, you have to start as a beginner. You have to start when you don't feel ready or comfortable doing so. So another great example of this from my own life actually is this podcast. With the exception of an interview that I did on the Excel Beyond Boundaries podcast earlier this year, podcasting is very new to me. All the technology, all of the things that you need to do in order to set this up, very, very new. Even talking into a microphone, talking to a camera, it's all wildly out of my comfort zone. And I'm kind of in the thick of that right now. I'm kind of in the thick of being a beginner and just, flailing my arms and figuring it out as I go. And each time that I do this, I'll gain a little bit more knowledge on it and I'll feel a little bit more comfortable in what I'm doing. That's just it. If I ever want to get to a place where podcasting just comes naturally and feels like something I'm really confident and comfortable with, I have to be willing to start out at square one and just learn the process along the way. And I mean, starting out, I have a million reasons not to do this, right? It's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable. There's a million other podcasts out there. What could I have to tell you that somebody else already hasn't said? But you have to be willing to take all those excuses and just throw them in the trash. Just throw them out, set it aside, and just be willing to lean into that discomfort and do it anyways, because it gets a little bit easier every time that you do. We often want to wait around for the perfect time or until things feel like they're just right before we leap into whatever it is that we're wanting to do, whether it's switching jobs, starting a new exercise program, or launching a podcast. We will often delay getting started because we don't feel confident or ready, and we'll tell ourselves these lies like it's just not the right time, or once I accomplish XYZ, then I can do this thing. And we come up with these excuses in our heads to justify the fact that we're really just scared to take action. But when you're willing to just show up and do it anyways, do it scared, do it even though you don't feel like you are capable of doing so, you start proving to your brain that you are capable. All of those little moves in the right direction, they all start to add up and they become evidence to your brain that you are capable of doing this thing. So I'll put this into perspective for my visual learners out there. So I want you to imagine a skill, something that you are wanting to work on, something that you are wanting to do right now that you've been putting off because you don't feel confident in this particular thing, okay? So I want you to imagine confidence in this particular thing as a giant castle out in a field. It's magnificent, it's put together, it's ready to go. It's amazing, okay? Now, when you start out this particular skill, you are not going to start with that castle. You start with an empty field, okay? Every day that you show up and you put a little bit of work into this thing that you were wanting to do, you add a brick to that field. And that may not seem like much at one time. One brick on a field, it's almost imperceptible. It doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment. It doesn't feel like it changes anything. But if you come back day after day and you keep doing those things and you keep stacking up those bricks, eventually that castle will be there. So what can we do about this? You recognize that confidence is something that you can work on, but how do we go about doing it? So I'm going to walk you through a couple of tips that'll just help make this shift in perspective and this ability to take action a little bit easier and a little bit more tangible. So the first one is I want you to start small. Okay, we talked about habits a couple episodes ago, and it was a very similar concept where you do not need to just dive into the deep end and go balls to the wall straight out of the gate. You do not need to do that, okay? You can start with baby steps. Baby steps taken day after day add up to very, very huge change, and this goes for building confidence as well. So here's an example. Let's say you want to become someone who runs. You haven't run in years, maybe not since, high school track and field, and now you are late into adulthood and it has been a while. You don't feel confident in your running ability, and the thought of doing something like running a marathon feels so impossible and out of reach with your current skill set. So, do you go and run a marathon right out of the gate? No, absolutely not. Start by doing something like a 5-minute run. And I know day one, when you go and do that thing, let's say it's a 5-minute run in the evening. After your dinner, you go out and you go for a little run around your neighborhood. You're not going to feel confident the first time around, but you have to lean into that discomfort and just do it anyways. And the thing is, day one is going to feel really uncomfortable, but you do that 100 days in a row. Day 101, is going to feel way easier because you have stacked up 100 days of undeniable proof that you are capable of doing this thing. Okay? So do you see how this works? Every day that you do this, your brain starts to recognize, oh, this is something I can do. This is something I'm capable of doing. And it becomes this compounding evidence of your capabilities. Being able to have that evidence of your capability and that competency in this thing that you want to do is what leads to confidence. So the second thing, and we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but think of confidence as a skill. So shifting the way you behave when it comes to confidence starts with you shifting the way that you think about it. So we need to drop this notion that confidence is this static attribute, because that's not what it is. So we really need to start thinking of confidence as an actionable thing, as something that we can build and improve on over time. A way that I like to think about this to kind of help shift it into an actionable step is to think as confidence as a collection of competency. So if there's a new skill or a new thing that I'm trying to learn, every time that I go and do that thing and I get a little bit more experience and I learn a little bit more, I become a little bit more confident or a little bit more competent. And I start stacking up that competency. And as I collect competency over time, my confidence in this particular thing will grow. Being able to shift our thinking around this and think of confidence as something that we can work on and attain over time makes it feel much more achievable. It doesn't feel like this elusive thing that, either exists within you or doesn't. It starts to feel like something that you can actually achieve. It starts to become an end goal that you are able to put in work and steps to get to. It also eliminates this excuse of not doing things because you quote unquote, don't feel confident. If it's a new thing, of course you don't feel confident. You shouldn't. It's new territory. It's not something that you're used to doing. It is something you are going to have to build. And the last thing that I think is a big, big game changer when it comes to building confidence is don't break promises to yourself. This is a really big one, okay? Do not break promises to yourself. And this pertains a little bit more to your general self-confidence in who you are as a person, more so than building confidence in a particular skill. But if you are able to improve your self-confidence and your confidence in your characteristics and how you show up in the world, that translates into an increased ability to go after these things that you are wanting to achieve. Breaking promises to ourselves sends our brain a message. It sends a message that says, I am not someone that can be trusted or relied on to follow through on the things that I say I'm going to do. And it doesn't have to be really big actions that send this message. It can be something as simple as setting an alarm for a certain time to get up the next morning and not getting up when it goes off, or planning to go and do a workout after work and making an excuse to skip it. All of those little votes in favor of you being someone who is not reliable, they start to add up. So if you continue to break these little promises to yourself over time, that continues to add up as proof in your brain that you are not someone that you can trust. You are not someone that you can rely on. And it starts to shift how you relate to yourself and how you believe in yourself to achieve certain goals. Because let's say there's something new that you are wanting to achieve. If you go to start working towards it, there's going to be this voice in your head that says, oh, what if I mess it up like I have X, Y, and Z? I'm not able to do it because of X, Y, and Z. I've done, all of these things in the past that show me that I can't do this. But in contrast, if we consistently follow through on the promises we make to ourselves, big or small, those will stack up in the opposite direction. So all of those votes in favor of you being someone that is trustworthy and being someone that is reliable and being someone that shows up even when it's hard and does the things that they need to do, that they told themselves they're going to do, even though they don't want to do it, that tells your brain that you are trustworthy and you are reliable and you are someone that is going to follow through if you make a goal. So this will translate into improved confidence. All those votes for reliability, they give you the feedback that you're capable of doing what you want to do. So in contrast, how we feel going after a new goal, if we've been breaking all these promises to ourselves, if we have a new goal we want to work towards and we have been consistently doing the things that we say we're going to do, you go into it with this sense of, you know what, I know I can do it. I know I can do these things that are on my to-do list and check off these things to get towards my goal. Because I have all this evidence that I'm able to do it. I have all of these other little stacks of proof to say that I am trustworthy and that I can rely on myself to do this. You wouldn't want to be friends with someone who consistently breaks their promises to you, would you? Probably not. So don't be that shitty friend to yourself. So if there's something that you've been wanting to do, but you've been putting off, let this be your sign to stop second guessing yourself and just go for it. I promise you will find your footing along the way. You are capable of so much greatness in this life if you are just willing to try. All right? That's what I've got for you today. So my homework for you this week, go out and try something new. Just take one small step towards a direction of something that you were wanting to achieve. And that's what I have for you this week. If you're still here, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. If you like the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends or leave a review. Your support allows this show to reach even more amazing people just like you, and it would mean the absolute world to me. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time at the Mindset Gym.